bound to God. And it said this, that Abraham, the concept was easy for Abraham because Abraham had slaves. Abraham owned slaves. The concept of master, lord, slave was not a foreign concept to Abraham. But then it delved into that time in history. And guys, granted, there were bad masters, amen? There really were. But there were good ones too. Abraham was a good one. And he had bond servants. And the slave or the servant of Abraham, it said, reaped the benefit of being like a son or daughter. He would eat in the house. Some of them would literally sit at the table with Abraham. When they went to town, if they got into some sort of legal trouble, the fact that they were Abraham's bondservant or slave, that they had every benefit and every privilege and every legal contribution that the family member of Abraham had. They were bound to him. See, guys, when you see yourself in the household of God, the great house, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 20. In a great house, there are vessels of honor. When you see yourself in the great house, amen, the household of God, and you see yourself and recognize him as master, servant, you reap every benefit that there is to reap of being connected to the master. Let's look at it. Isaiah chapter 65, verse 13. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Who's the sovereign Lord? Jehovah. Amen. Jehovah says, my servants, my slaves will eat. You'll go hungry. My servants will drink. You'll go thirsty. My servants will rejoice. You'll be put to shame. My servants will sing out of joy in their hearts. But you will cry out from anguish of heart and wail and brokenness of spirit. A servant of God reaps every benefit. God does not withhold from his servants. Amen. Galatians 1:10, Paul says, am I now trying to win the approval of men or of God? Am I trying to please men? Question mark. Then he answers, he says, if I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant, a doulos, a slave of Christ. This man, Paul, who wrote so much of our New Testament, fully embraced, fully understood the concept of being a slave, fully understood the whole thing of being owned by God, that he was bought with a price. You cannot be a man pleaser and be a servant of God. Luke 16:13 says, no servant can serve two masters. You'll love one and hate the other. You cannot be a man pleaser and continue to serve God. Won't happen. Romans 1 verse 9. Paul says, God, whom I serve. And that word serve is the same one we read in Revelations where it says his servants will serve him. That word serve there means to minister to God or to worship God. God whom I serve, who I minister to, who I worship with my whole heart. Say whole heart. Whole heart. Acts 27:23. I know I'm going fast giving you a lot of scriptures, but I want you to get this. Acts 27:23. Last night, this is Paul talking, an angel of the God whose I am and whom I serve stood beside me. An angel of the God of whose I am and whom I serve stood beside me. This is an expression of Paul's entire devotedness to God. Hey, let's go back to Romans 1:1 for a minute. Romans 1:1 back here in the back, guys. Let's read it again. Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ. Called to be an apostle. Look at this next little phrase. Separated unto the gospel of God. Separated unto the gospel. What does it mean to be separated? Remember the great house, vessel of honor, sanctified, set apart, consecrated unto God. A servant, a bondservant, a slave of God is somebody who has literally set apart themselves to only be used by God. That word separated there in Romans 1:1, I'll spell it for you. It's A-P-H-O-R-I-Z-O. And it means to set off by boundaries. It means to put limits, to have exclusions. If you are a servant of God tonight, your life needs to be set off, separated by boundaries. You need to have limits and exclusions in your life. What does that mean? I'll give you, for instance, and Mike and Derek can tell you that this, I've talked to them about it. As a Christian and a musician, there are things I will not do. There are places I will not play. I don't care how much they're going to pay me. I don't care if they're coming tomorrow to repo my home. I will not play there. I will not use the gift for entertainment. I will not play there. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's separated unto God. It's consecrated unto God. But the benefit that I reap is when they're going hungry, I'll be eating. When they're wailing in anguish, I'll be rejoicing and overflowing joy. Do you understand? Come on, you got to get this, guys. Do you believe this thing is absolute truth, or are you just mentally assenting to that? Either you